Let's work on reducing stress. Let's get some exercise. Let's bring those lifestyle components. Let's get you to a therapist to work on executive functioning skills. It's really partnering and accepting the guidance and celebrating little steps.
Welcome to the Soaring Child Podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm your host, Dana Kay. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child Podcast. Now, if your journey is anything like mine was, you can probably relate to the hours and hours I spent trying to weed through the mountains of information, different therapies and treatments, or different options to help my son with ADHD. Along that way, you probably would have stumbled upon something called neurofeedback. Now, I've always wanted to learn more about neurofeedback and how it can help ADHD, and today is the day we are going there. My guest is a mental health trailblazer, founder of the Global Institute of Children's Mental Health, and is on a mission to change the way we view and treat mental health, showing people it's going to be okay with science-backed tools that improve well-being. My guest is a certified school psychologist, a licensed professional counselor, certified integrative medicine mental health provider, and a board-certified neurofeedback provider. She's also the author of 3 books, including her most recent book, It's Gonna Be Okay, which gives parents a step-by-step solution for their struggling children. Now it's time to welcome Roseann Capanna-Hodge to the Soaring Child. Hi, Roseann. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to talk to you, my friend, and talk about all the ways that we can celebrate and support the brains of kids who have ADHD and love up the mamas and papas who are, here kind of trying to navigate and help their kids really blossom.
Definitely. You are a woman after my own heart. I just, we're obviously help families and kids that are struggling. And I'm really, really excited to talk to you today about neurofeedback and ADHD. I know when I think back to when my son was really struggling, there was just so many mountains of therapies and, treatments and supplements. And it was so hard to really weed through and work out what the best way forward is. And, I just wish I would have listened to a podcast that you were talking on when I was going through this with my son. And that's why I'm super excited to dive in. And I think let's just really, really start at the basics. Why don't we just start with what is neurofeedback?
Yeah. So, neurofeedback is something people may have heard about and have no idea what it is. And it's actually a therapy, a method, a technique that has been around for actually close to 60 years. It's got tens of thousands of research studies and 3,000 peer-reviewed studies to show how effective it is. So what really is it? Through the use of computers, you are learning to take a brain that is what I call dysregulated, either overstimulated, anxious, OCD, angry, or understimulated, ADD, difficulty completing tasks, learning disabilities, different types of anxiety, and getting it to actually produce a healthy combination of brainwaves so that a person of any age, right, could be 3.5 and up. And yes, you can be elderly. And yes, you can be a mom who is 47, like one of the moms I just came out today.
Amazing.
She actually flew out from France
to
come and work with me. She's a cool mom. I really like her. But we work with people all over the world, and you don't have to come and see me in person, even though I do love when people come and see me. We can send people the equipment and do it fully remote. But
That's awesome.
The computer, what it does, nothing comes through it. and it is reinforcing the brain every single time it produces this healthy combination. And it's very, very, very simple. It's based on operant conditioning, that when you give somebody a reward, right, you're more likely to repeat that behavior. And the brain is the same. It learns it. And everyone gets so freaked out, Dana. They think like something's coming through the wires. But it's not. It's actually just measuring. And even to back it up before then, the really simplistically in terms of the neurofeedback is we do some type of assessment. If people are in person, we do a QEEG brain map. And all that does is give us a visual representation of exactly what is going on in the brain. Okay. So we know which structures are working, which aren't. And I can see the brain's communication, right? So in the case of ADD, or we think they have ADD, because about 50% of the time people tell me they think they have ADD and they don't.
I can completely attest to that one. It's the same with, the people that we work with. About 50% of them come into the program and we just change the diet and their symptoms go away. So that statistics is exactly the one I use as well.
And I have data, right? And you have data. So, and I have a great blog about all the things that could be besides ADD. There's a lot of things that impact attention, because really what's the basis of ADD is your brain isn't alerting in the same way. So we do some type of assessment. So either QEEG in person or a brain check if they're remote, where we statistically look at certain regions. Then I design a protocol. You're hooked up to a computer, and within 2 to 3 seconds, literally, Dana, the first time you are doing a neurofeedback session, which the computer is going to give you feedback of a movie playing or not playing. It's that easy. Your brain will produce the exact healthy, perfect combination of brain waves in 2 to 3 seconds, because it wants this movie to play. And so imagine getting on a treadmill. It's like being able to walk on a treadmill the first time you're there. You can't build that muscle one time. So you need to do it 2 or 3 times a week. Most people are doing that for somewhere between 5 to 6 months, around 40 sessions, because the brain doesn't want to stay in that healthy rhythm. And the research says, as far as 10 years out, that it's lasting, and it's been a wonderful therapy for kids with ADHD. Like, for example, I have a very behavioral child that I'm working with. His mom is a therapist. She's actually a holistic therapist, and has made some changes with diet and nutrition, which is the foundation of the brain. So I
pitch
can
into the choir here. Pitch into the choir.
Hello. So, and I understand and respect, Dana, that I have a lot of kids who have sensory processing, who might have RFID, they might have eating disorders related to OCD or sensory things. You got to start somewhere. Yes. Right? So if it's 5 foods that your kid can eat, because I've had those kids and I know you did too, we want to say, let's try number 6, you know?
We're not aiming for 100. We're aiming for number 6.
Right. For right now, you know, I had a kid who his whole life he could eat 5 foods, and they did neurofeedback, and one of their goals was to increase, and we got him to 21. They thought it was a miracle from God. I mean, they had spent tens of thousands of dollars going to every feeding therapist. You know, so with that, diet is the basis. It provides for neuroplasticity and flexibility. And really, honestly, Dana, regardless of age, it's the nutrition that makes a lot of determining factor in terms of how quickly a brain can change. So if I have a anti-inflammatory eater, a paleo eater, their brain changes quicker.
Sure does.
They see symptom relief quicker, you know, and why? Because they're getting nutrients, and their brain is able to, it's healing that brain. So it's a lovely process. You're, doing these, sessions, 30 minutes. And what you're looking for is a change in intensity, frequency, or duration of symptoms. And it happens. I mean, it's pretty rare where I work with somebody that they don't have significant improvement. And that's coupled with the research. And we see that with research with kids with ADHD, it's not uncommon for kids to improve 90% or better in terms of symptom relief. I have to say, anecdotally, it's very clear to me which cases aren't going to improve.
Yes. Yep.
And it's because there's an obstacle with moving up to the summit of the mountain. And maybe that's medical, maybe that's a fear, you're afraid and you back out and you go back on those meds, or there's so many reasons.
Yes, so many obstacles. Yes.
No guilt. It's just detective. Which one can I address first? You can't address them all. So that's neurofeedback. You just reinforce the brain for changing from an unhealthy to a healthy brainwave. And it's very possible and it's lasting, and you can directly target very specific regions. Working memory, executive functioning, phoneme processing. So
let's take a little bit of a tangent. And you said, okay, let's target working memory. So just say you were targeting working memory. What would a neurofeedback session look like if you were targeting working memory?
Yeah. So regardless of where I'm targeting, targeting has to do with sensor placement. So there are sensors placed on the head, and there's something called, if you can imagine, a conductivity paste. And it's sort of a waxy paste. You put it on. And again, nothing's coming through the wire. It's just measuring. And what's fascinating is that region that I'm placing the sensors, like for working memory, how does change happen in the brain? Well, the subconscious brain, which is running the show, everybody, 95% or more of the time, is going to say, oh, if I change this region of my brain, I get the Scooby-Doo movie to play. Okay. Or the number one movie, which is Back to the Future in our office. Or
is
SpongeBob.
That really?
Oh, no, it's not a joke. Back to the Future and Indiana Jones, top 2 movies of all ages.
There you go. Wow. I mean, I love Back to the Future. And even for kids that are coming up that have never seen it? Is it still?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Like, it's good old 80s clean fun. You know what I mean? And it's like there's nothing bad in it, you know? So what happens is that region of the brain says, I need to change. It produces. And what it does is it creates a cascade of action potentials, which is new electrical activity in the brain. And the brain then, we keep reinforcing it. You keep working the muscle. And then that brain over somewhere, for most people, it's somewhere around session 15 to 20. If you have autism and ADHD, it could be closer to 20 or a little bit over, just because the autistic brain can be a little more rigid, just like their behaviors. It doesn't mean that it's not going to change. You just got to love it up a little bit more and give it a little more time. And it needs extra reinforcement, extra learning. That's it, you know? And then what happens is the brain then creates a new set point, a new homeostasis, and it's able to function at a higher rate outside of the neurofeedback session on its own. And we do QEEG and brain check driven neurofeedback, and it's EEG neurofeedback. There's all kinds of neurofeedback. I'm not going to smack talk any one of them. They're all good.
I was actually going to go down that. I'm going to come back to that in 1 second, but I just want you to tell me. So a kid's sitting on a chair, okay, and is looking at a TV.
Yeah.
What's happening on that TV?
Yeah. So great. Okay. So the screen in our type of EEG neurofeedback, what happens is when the brain is performing well, and it is over 90% of the time, because the way we set up reinforcement and rewards, the screen is normal. When it's not, the screen gets small or it dims, depending on if you're coming in the center or remote. And the brain subconscious says, oh man, I got to get that, this is the scene where the water comes through the mines in Indiana Jones. I got to get this thing working. And it will actually feverishly try to improve that area in order to get it to work. It's pretty incredible. I mean, Dana, the first time, have you ever tried a neurofeedback session yourself?
I have not, no.
Okay. when I did my first session, I went to go and get trained myself. And it was my buddy, Harry, a million years ago. And I said, Harry, how quick can I get this darn equipment? I mean, I got that equipment and I became like a junkie. I had like a little baby and I was like, this is amazing. I haven't slept, because my baby was up. Yes. And I can just do this neurofeedback in my frontal lobes and I can feel alert and I can feel good. It was an incredible thing. It's been a gift because I've been able to, so many people come to me, Dana, as they do to you, because they've had treatment failure after treatment failure.
Yes, yes.
And I get some portion of people who are just holistic, who want to learn and want to make, bring that into their lives. I recently had a mom of a girl who the teacher said was ADD and needed medication. And she said, I don't think so. She's 7 years old, not happening. Yeah. And the mom, got me from word of mouth. And when I brain mapped her, she's not ADHD. She's a learning disability in her brain, in the sequencing area of her brain.
Interesting.
And she's anxious. And if she had done Ritalin, she absolutely would have been crawling out of her skin. So there are many, many other reasons. If anything in this podcast, it's opening your mind to their other possibilities, that nutrition and nutrients are the foundation to build the brain. And sometimes those things alone can rectify things.
Yes.
But there are clinical issues.
Yes.
And that's where my neurofeedback comes in, because no matter what's going on, a brain trauma, seizures, these cross conditions, I do a lot of OCD and anxiety and pandas, and ADD is always in the history, Yes. But that's what they're doing, that sitting in front of a computer. And you're going to ask me, how do ADD kids do it? Well, their brain is getting stimulated, just like your kid can play video games.
Yes.
Yeah, that it feels good. Even if they can't articulate. Do we ever have kids who we have to do something different and we have to work towards more minutes in the sessions? Of course. I have a little kid who's doing neurofeedback. I think he just turned 6. He's on the spectrum with ADD, and we really were aiming for 10 minutes, and now some days we can do a full session, like a 25-minute session, and someday we can do 12. Yeah. And we're going to be okay with that. And there's not going to feel bad. And his brain is going to tell us what it needs. And that 12-minute session is as effective on that day for him as it is 25.
Totally get that. That's amazing. And I love hearing all of these stories. You touched on, there are many different types of neurofeedback. And so, when a family's out there looking at all the options, what are the different options? Why is one better than the other? Why is one more effective than the other?
Yeah. So a lot of times in my field of neurofeedback, and it's a small field, because it is incredibly hard to learn how to do EEG, Z-score, some of the guided neurofeedback where you're not just doing it on your own. It takes a minimum of 2 years of, I'm talking dedication. And when I got trained, I remember, there was like neurologists there. It's not easy. And reading brain maps, less than 2% of us are able to do that. It's that hard. It's very intuitive for me. And I didn't feel like it was that hard. It was one of those things that just was very clearly a divine download. So why is one form better than another? Well, devices like things like Apollo Neuro, which isn't neuro, which is biofeedback, Mightier, which is biofeedback, these kind of things, they're good for stress management. Okay. They're good if you want sort of general improvement. There's nothing wrong with them. They can be cost effective. There's nothing bad. Why do I do EEG driven neurofeedback? And specifically, why do I do EEG neurofeedback where I can actually just put one sensor on or 2 and not 19 at the same time? Well, I deal with brains that are very complex, that they might have birth trauma, autism diagnosis, PANS diagnosis, ADD, OCD, all at once. And so I need to have the greatest control. And with neurofeedback, the number one determining factor of success, besides the client actually doing the sessions, and you have to do it at least twice a week or you're kind of wasting your time. Remember, going to the gym once a week ain't going to do it, but twice, you're going to notice some differences, right? Is the number one determining factor is the experience of the practitioner. You've got somebody who's worked with thousands of people. I've done over 10,000 brain maps. I need 30, a lot of brain maps. I need 30 seconds to look at a brain map. And I'll tell you it like I'm reading, doing a psychic reading. Like I don't even need to look at a history, because the brain is so clear about when you know what it can do and what it can't. You don't have to guess. You don't have to say, oh, can he really read better? Is it a focus problem or is it dyslexia? The brain will show you on a brain map. It's it's so unbelievably diagnostic. So when you're talking about guided neurofeedback, is it better? It certainly is more targeted. And when you have a clinical issue, it is what is needed. I choose to do EEG versus what's called Z-score, where you're training 19 areas at once. Because again, my brains that are coming into me, these are unstable. These are people who have low and high areas, and often probably 70% of my population at any given point, and I would say that's a low estimate, has underlying infectious disease on top of it or mold toxicity. So I have to be so clear. I have to be so conservative. And that's why people come to me often after doing it unsuccessfully with other people. It's not to say the practitioner isn't good. It's just that I know I am the expert in infectious disease and how encephalopathy, brain inflammation impacts, and in terms of neurofeedback. So general things, even heart math, biofeedback, awesome. Love it. Great. You're looking to bring down those stress levels to calm down the brain. Wonderful. If you're looking for it as a replacement for ADD medication or some other medication, it's not going to get you to where you need to go. And if it's a cost savings component and that's what you need, what you can do it. Don't be afraid of it. And I would encourage everybody, we have to power the brain down in order to power it up. Otherwise, you're going to constantly get the blue circle. You're going to use up all your RAM in your computer. And I don't think people think about that with kids with ADHD, because they see them as understimulated already. But it's because there's so many things going on. They're so bombarded. And we really have to get that brain working. It's really that car alignment, right? The wheel alignment.
Yeah. And so you touched on, the kids with the ADHD. How does neurofeedback really benefit the brains of kids with ADHD?
Yeah. So first of all, you know how ADD looks different, right? And there are completely, right? So you got your kid who has a hard time starting a task or completing a task, or you got your disorganized, right? You have your kid. So everybody with ADHD has executive functioning issues, right? So their ability to plan and prioritize for a future task, that's executive functioning, and attention is how the brain alerts. Then you have people who have emotional components to their ADHD. You have other kids who are like the mayor and have the best social skills. So what's behind it, right? What are those bases? So I'm a research nerd, and there's so much, there's so much amazing research with kids with ADHD getting neurofeedback. And we know that it improves inattention. We know that it improves impulsivity. And we even know for kids that are moody or anxious that it can improve those kind of components. So those pain points, those difficulties, those challenges that make kids with ADHD make it harder at home. I mean, you have a kid who isn't listening.
Yes.
Isn't starting it
frustrated. Meltdown.
Isn't starting a task or tantruming excessively, right? It's hard for us to parent them, and it's hard for them to feel good about themselves. And then they get caught in the shame cycle. Don't even get me started on that. So it's hard on both sides. It's we want to celebrate and blossom our kids, but we also have, we have to do whatever we can to optimize their brains. And there's the great news is there's so many safe, natural, and effective ways. This is all science backed,
And it all is, and I'm just going to go on a tangent there. Roseann, everything that you're saying is, getting me right in the heart, because there are so many solutions out there for children that are struggling that isn't a prescription medication. And I was actually just going in my free Facebook group today talking about, why is it that that's all people are given? Why aren't, primary care providers sharing that diet has to be the foundation? The diet feeds the brain. And then when you can reduce that inflammation in the body, bringing in therapies like neurofeedback to really optimize that brain. Why isn't that,
Oh, I mean, you and I we should do a whole other topic on this.
Could.
I have it all boiled down. I mean, so first of all, we aren't training those professionals. I grew up as a daughter of Italian immigrants, and so food was medicine. My mother, this is what we did. And as soon as I went to, I was an undergrad even, I was like, wait a second, I was working in psych hospitals, Jana. And I was like, how are these kids here? They're just standing and getting their meds, and they're out of control. And I knew there had to be another way. So as soon as I went to graduate school, I started pushing and looking. And it was so long ago, it was on microfiche, Dana. And I would go into the basement and, I was like, there's stuff from like the 60s in here, but we're not talking about it. Now, I was very lucky. It was in a very small doctoral program. And my professors were like, yeah, neurofeedback's fantastic. Yeah, because it was designed to support kids with learning disabilities and ADHD. So once you're working with those kind of kids, you're like, this and this and this don't work. Okay.
Yes.
So they're ignoring that. We're ignoring science, right? And I don't want to put this all in the medical world, right? This is also parents not trusting their own instincts.
Yes. Their gut. I talk about that a lot. Trusting their gut, because I didn't. I when I go back to when my son was diagnosed, he went on one prescription medication, then they added another one to treat the symptoms of that, then another one to treat the symptoms of that, and they wanted him on a fourth. But all along I was like, hold on, wasn't trusting my gut until I trusted my gut, and I dived into that research like you have your nerd hat on.
And the research is there. And, I've been holistic for 30 years. This is my 30th year. And I actually think it's my 31st year in mental health. I can't remember, but it's somewhere in there. It's the third decade.
Yes.
And I have had friction with mental health professionals all along the way. And I recently was in a professional group with therapists, licensed professionals, and I was attacked by somebody who said, I'm not supporting neurodiversity and that 100% of kids with ADHD need medication. And I was like, hold on, people. Okay, because let me give you a little stats about medication. First of all, 70% of all psychiatric medications for children are used off-label, meaning there's no research to substantiate it. Number one. Number two, what do we know about ADD medication, which is considered safe because it washes out of the body within a 24-hour period approximately. Let's just say that, is that 100% of the time a psychostimulant will have a side effect. Let me say that again. 100% of the time a psychostimulant. So it becomes a cost benefit, right?
It's a total cost benefit. Yep.
So he's doing better in school, but he's a nightmare at home. And I used to run the largest group you could think of that begins with a C around ADHD, which accepts a lot of money from pharma. I used to run a support group for them, and I had to stop, and parent support group. And do you know why? My support group was the parents only wanted to talk about rebound effects and how hard it was and what other medication could they use and this and that. And we now are prioritizing grades over mental health. And
yes,
this is why kids are falling apart, right? Yeah. So there's so many layers. I want every parent to say, listen to your instincts and look to research. Yeah. Okay. I mean, my book has 40 pages of citations. I don't mess around. Yeah. And the reason why is, I'm Dr. Roseann. I'm out there and I'm pushing the limits, and I want people to be like, so where's the research? And I'm like, here you go. Let me talk to you about vitamin D. Let me talk to you about that. So please know, if you're listening, that you are listening probably because you really do want to help your child. And that means, opening up the curtain, looking what's there. Since 2012, the American Academy of Pediatrics says neurofeedback is a level 1 intervention, the same as psych meds, the same as psychostimulants. But pediatricians are not telling parents that. Why? I don't know. And there is also a lot of money behind the scenes. Pharma does a lot of things. Yes. Pharma is also paying people to troll on social media to attack accounts that are promoting other ways. And this is not craziness. And Google accepted $900 million from Merck in 2019 to reduce the word natural and 5-HTP. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we could talk about this one for hours and hours and hours. So I just want to, we're coming to the end now. Is, you've got in-person neurofeedback, you've got at home. Is at-home neurofeedback as good as in person? And really, what determines the success of neurofeedback in general?
Yeah. So first of all, in person and at home neurofeedback, at least the way we do it, are as successful. And I waited over 10 years for the technology to get as good for in-home. So what determines the success? One, you're going to get the equipment and actually use it, or you're going to come, and that means 2 or more times a week. You're going to listen to your provider. So if your provider is saying, hey, listen, let's add some vitamin B12. Let's work on reducing stress. Let's get some exercise. Let's bring those lifestyle components. Let's get you to a therapist to work on executive functioning skills. It's really partnering and accepting the guidance and celebrating little steps. Yes. So I talk about the summit. We're all going to get to the summit, but we got to get to the base camps first, people. We're being sold a bill of goods that everything is a pill, and it's not. So that is really important. And what determines success? I mean, like I said, it's doing those things, but also really having a practitioner who is skilled. And you want to get somebody who's board certified and has experience. If you have a kid with ADD, you want to go to a practitioner who has a kid with ADHD. Because if you're going to an adults only and that kid comes in there and, I don't know, writes on your wall, it's happened. We're gonna be like, okay, well, how are we gonna fix this? We take things with stride, and families deal with so much worry and shame. And I know our staff, we really are a team. Our job is to love up on you and really give you that care, because there is nothing more scary, as you and I both know as special needs parents, when your kid is struggling. We would do anything. I'd clean toilets for the rest of my life. Yep. I don't care what it is. So, and the other part about neurofeedback, it is an investment. This isn't cheap. But what I say to people, it's even today in the area where I live, talk therapy once a week is who's going to therapy for a year when you're not addressing the brain, right? You've got to address the brain. And that's the foundation for new learning. And that's where you do some of these other things, whether it's study skills or psychotherapy to deal with stress management. That's what science tells us. Yes. But I hope this opens people's minds and they consider it. And again, I cannot say more strongly that nutrition is the foundation.
Yes.
Of brain and physical health.
Definitely. When you are building a house, if that foundation is not strong, that house will fall down, and the body is exactly the same. The brain is exactly the same. So thank you, Roseann, for joining me today. I had so much fun talking to you, and the knowledge that you share was amazing. Please tell our listeners where they can find and follow you online.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this conversation. I love talking to you, and we're so simpatico in so many ways. And I love the work that you're doing. I know so many families love working with you. You can find me, Dr. Roseann, anywhere. So it's DRROSEAN, that's .com. You can find me, Dr. Roseann, on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and I'm Dr. Roseann Capanna-Hodge on Facebook.
Fantastic. Thank you once again, Roseann, for joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at ADHD ThriveInstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.